Paul. I saw that.
It's a vape. Cigarette vape.
Now, where's the ice house? Hashtag not an ad.
You're killing me, Carl. Way to twist the
That's
knife.
all I'm good at. That's all I'm good at.
All right, boys.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to a very sober edition of NFL Ski with me, Paul, and Carl. Yeah, we're just kind of catching up on what's going on with NFL news. Right now, not much is going on other than NFL free agency. I'm glad we waited a day because there is some news with sign and trades and franchise tag stuff instead of doing it on Monday. Because most of our people here are local and people can tell us in the chat, whoever's here, like Daniel Jeffries, like Ant Mass, like Scottish Bear. We were even debating on kind of letting some NFL ski talk bleed into some bear ski talk somewhere at some point through the show, kind of combining the shows. Because we've always said we don't want to just pump out content just to pump out content. If we do a little bit of that and a little bit of this, I think it'll be the best quality. So if anybody has an opinion in the chat, please feel free. Otherwise, we're just going to kind of round up the NFL, talk about stuff we like to talk about, and we joke with each other about on text. So yeah, we'll get started there. Paul, Carl, anything to add before we get started on some topics?
No, man, just what's up to everybody in chat. Thank you guys for joining us. Bear down as always, and yeah, I'm excited to join you guys tonight on the NFL Ski Show. So, thank you for doing me the honor of having me on.
I'm excited to have you on, Paul. I need to apologize. I did not go live this weekend for the weekend show, the Friday Saturday show, the Iron Spy. So I apologize to anyone who missed out on that. Won't be happening anytime soon, in my opinion. It was Valentine's Day weekend, so there's a lot of celebrating going on this weekend. And the Iron Spy channel, by the way, almost at 400 subscribers. I'd have to say, primarily thanks to BCP, to BEARSKIFILM, everyone who's involved. So thank you guys so very much.
You deserve every sub, Carl. You are quality content and awesome. So anything we can do to help, that's awesome. Yeah, and otherwise, just kind of break down the week. I had something else to say, but never mind. So congrats to Carl. So I thought we do a little thought experiment, fellas, with the free agency, just because the news of the day is more related of today is free agency. Franchise tags have been opened, so they are allowed to be given out. And one of the bigger pieces of news on the day pertaining to kind of free agents, no official franchise tags, to my knowledge, have been given out as of day one, which is not surprising. It does not really mean anything. We are close to, who would you say, Carl, is the closest? Because the one I read was T. Higgins.
I would love to share my screen, but you've already hit the nail on the head. It has gone through the 2x4, but if you want to throw up my screen real quick.
Absolutely.
T. Higgins' mother has called the Bengals a couple of selfish bastards.
That's
so
awesome.
T. Higgins, as per Joe Burrow's request, will be retained by the Cincinnati Bengals. I apologize to you, Mike Vrabel, and the New England Patriots.
That one did feel like an absolute slam dunk home run kind of T. Higgins to the Patriots. But I don't know how selfish the Bengals are. I mean, if he's getting 1 year, 40 million, whatever the hell of fucking, it's going to be in the 30s to 40s because that's what top flight wide receivers on average will get paid as the top 5 average, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know how selfish
is correct. I think the selfish part of it comes from the loss of ability of the client or your son to miss out on the open market overpay, like what the Bears might be doing, hopefully, with Trey Smith.
Which with T's. So here's my thought experiment. This is according to CBS NFL. The top 25 free agents. And I thought, just to keep it kind of brief, and the lower we get on the list, kind of maybe, let's be realistic. I'm going to name a player, give a brief rundown of what you think, and maybe the team that you think would probably make the most sense for them. And then maybe even explaining, is it something you've seen? Is it something from stuff you've seen on like Twitter or whatever? But yeah, so starting with T. Higgins, because they do have T. Higgins ranked as the number 1 free agent in this free agency class, which in my opinion feels kind of gross. I don't really get, I like T. Higgins. He seems pretty good. I don't know if he's definitely legitimately a true number 1. He gives me Christian Kirk vibes. He gives me, and I know he's a little bit better than that, but I just don't know how bona fide of a number one starter he is on any team. Like
My
the
fear
Patriots
with
were the ones
that,
that makes the most sense.
I agree with you. My fear regarding T. Higgins and how good he is, right, comes from my thought process applied to Jamar Chase. It's Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, everyone else. I think Puka Nacua is third, but there's a huge gap between those two LSU kids and the rest of them. So if you take away a really good receiver like that and apply that pressure to T. Higgins as far as scheming against him, whatever, maybe he's not as good as he looks as he does with the Bengals.
And the argument on the other side, go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
Yeah, just in general, my philosophy on wide receivers, I hate paying them. I really do. And you're right, Carl. It is Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and just about everybody else. And I don't know. I've just looked throughout the history of the NFL and whatnot, and I've seen quarterbacks be able to work with guys that are, you know what I mean, not as good as Jamar Chase and not as good as Justin Jefferson. And then I look at these top tier wide receivers. I mean, I always go back to this. Randy Moss doesn't have a ring, right? So, like, I know. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? I'm not sure. I just don't think that paying a wide receiver is always the best route to go. And the Bengals are already paying Chase, right? And I mean, dude, God bless T. Higgins' mom. Of course, that's her son and whatnot. But like, man, you want the money, you want the contract, go be better than Jamar Chase. I mean, that's on you.
I feel like it screams like Muhsin Muhammad to me, right? Like, not necessarily to that. Or if you remember, Muhsin Muhammad was just like an absolute all-pro.
I kind of love that.
The Panthers, and then you bring him to the Bears, and yeah, will he be a number one by definition? Sure. Will he be as good as Steve Smith? Being separated from Steve Smith? Fucking no, absolutely not. No way. Like,
holy smokes, you guys! That Luke Impact guy right there, that young fellow from the UK, he's the GFX artist behind the Thy and Smile logo, the channel overlay for our thumbnails. So Luke, how's it going, buddy? I did not expect to see you in here, man.
Welcome. He's got some insomnia going on, being up at 3 a.m. Good for you, Luke.
Yeah, David, I also have a list of slides of free agents that we could even go over that, they are kind of more related to the Bears' needs. But I mean, I got some stuff ready if you wanted to look at those as well.
We can get there as we go. I do just kind of want to go through the top players. And so, like, real quick, I think that's enough for T. Higgins in terms of conversation. Does anybody have any dark horses of where we would think he lands? Because I think the Patriots made the most sense by far. Does anyone have any other teams they've heard of or think make sense?
I mean, I've seen him linked to every single team, which screams to how good of a player he's viewed as by other NFL fan bases, right? I don't know, the Raiders, maybe to supplement a really bad quarterback, whether that's Justin Fields or someone else. Maybe the Raiders pay for him.
I don't know why, but the Raiders popped in my head too, Carl. I was about to say the same thing.
So, real quick, we'll do this one. Fellas, looks like Bears are going to let Keenan Allen go. Who would you guys think should slide into a spot? Depending on the price, man, I think all the money should go on the next guy on our list, plus maybe number 6 on our list or number 7 on the list. And
Daniel Jeffries, my thought process has always been a Josh Palmer, veteran wide receiver 3, who's reliable and is not going to cost as much money as Keenan Allen.
See, and for me, I look at this roster, and we have Tyler Scott that was absolutely MIA last year. I mean, I don't know if that kid, I'd like him at wide receiver 3, but, we have some guys that we could still plug and play in there that need reps that I would like to know where they stand as Bears moving forward. So I think between Rome and DJ Moore is your 1 and 2. And, I think we have other guys we could kind of plug in there.
Guys, I saw DeAndre Carter be the number 1 option for like 2 weeks to Caleb Williams. I feel like if Caleb Williams ends up being what we think he's going to be, you can pretty much plug in any veteran and let Ben Johnson kind of just figure it out. So I don't think you should overpay. I'll put it that way. I think you guys probably agree.
Well, just look at the Lions receiving core. They had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is I won't apply the Jared Goff logic to him. I do think that he's a good wide receiver, and he was overlooked in the draft. But then you've got all these other guys. Jamo Williams is fine. He's just a speed demon, and he's a guy who Ben Johnson got a lot out of. But past that, like, they had, was it Craig Reynolds, who is a wide receiver, running back hybrid.
Josh
like,
Reynolds?
something like that, right? Like there was something weird going on, and Ben
and
Johnson
then
would be able to make the most of a lesser talented wide receiver core, in my opinion.
their number 3 wide receiver ended up being a guy who the Broncos released halfway through the year with Tim.
That is a special story though, because he tore his ACL like twice in 8 months or something like that. He was a very talented player. It was just he got the injury bug real bad.
Yeah.
I just think that position, like, unless you're making the playoffs, you don't really need to count on a wide receiver 3. You know what I mean? You could sit there and kind of rotate through those guys. I mean, unless you're a serious playoff contender and you need that spot hammered out and you need to make sure you can trust that guy in a do or die moment, which I don't think we're there. I don't think it matters so much to me.
I would go the Philadelphia Eagles route. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe not as wide receiver 3. Allow some sort of cheap veteran to play that role, and then hopefully you get a lot out of a rookie wide receiver from like the wide receiver 4 or 5 position. If we're looking at draft targets, I'm still stuck on Pat Bryant, who's a wide receiver for the University of Illinois. He had a great game against Michigan, so I'm advocating the hell out of him. I was just going to say, I like the Philadelphia Eagles approach. Thankfully, we have a far and away better quarterback, so we don't have to worry about trying to raise the floor on a mediocre quarterback. But you've got 2 top flat wide receivers, which I think the Bears essentially have. Really good pass-catching tight end. Hopefully they can use their assets this offseason to fix the offensive line. And then I would much rather invest in a quality running back as opposed to making it splash on a T. Higgins or something like that as like a 3rd wide receiver.
I think we can agree all there.
Yeah, can I just answer Daniel Jeffries real quick, just with the Tyler Scott question? So with that said, do you think Tyler Scott will be utilized in this new offense since he was MIA in the scheme with the last regime? I always thought that there was room for a speedy wide receiver last year, and for some reason we just didn't utilize it. Like I totally thought that there was room for that guy to be there to be able to stretch the field, and we just didn't do it. So I think he can be utilized. I mean, what other smaller, faster wide receivers do you have on this roster? None. So like I think there is a spot for him. You just got to do it right.
Hollywood Brown, I've heard attached, and that doesn't sound horrible, but it's basically a version of Tyler Scott. And there was a weird lack of go balls last year for the Bears, so hopefully they just throw some in here this time, schematically. And then also Caleb Williams just looked pretty bad at it, so maybe that's why.
You said that he has looked bad?
He has looked terrible at go balls. I'm not gonna lie, his deep balls are not great.
It's in his locker, right? Like he has that throw against the Panthers. Obviously, it's against the Panthers, but he still has it in his locker, in my opinion. But I think as we saw more and more prevalent towards the end of the season for the Bears, DJ Moore was essentially converted to a running back with all the behind the line of scrimmage throws. That just boils down to you having 3 starters on your offensive line that are from the practice squad. Like, that's why we weren't having the time to throw the ball down the field. So that's step 1. And hopefully that'll lead into a guy hopefully we're going to be talking about very soon.
Very much next. So Trey Smith is ranked for CBS as the number 2 guy in all of free agency. I think that is a slam dunk. It's an easy one. 6th-round pick at guard, which kind of is frustrating because it just kind of makes you understand that it's not something the Bears are able to do. The positive news that I think Carl's sharing is that he will not be franchise tagged and will be using a transition tag. I don't really know the difference between a franchise and a transition, if somebody can educate me on that. But from what I understand, generally speaking, that just gives the Bears a lot more space, or something along the lines of the Chiefs being allowed to match a contract or something like that.
Yeah, so essentially it gives the team the right of first refusal. So think of Ryan Bates. The Bears signed Ryan Bates years ago, but then the Bills matched it. So if the Bears gave an offer to Trey Smith that he couldn't refuse, $25 million a year, fully guaranteed, get him on the quarterback salary, whatever you want to say, the Chiefs could choose to match it, but that's where the strategy comes in, where you just say, no, we are not going to allow you to match it because your cap indicates that you can't match it.
That's smart. So yeah, Trey Smith. Obviously.
Also, the offer is based off of the top 10 average salaries, whereas the franchise tag is the top 5.
So that decreases the
amount. It's not an offer that you can make outright. It's in a set of guidelines, parameters.
Yeah, so like what Google says is the transition tag is a 1-year tendered offer for the average of the top 10 salaries at the position, as opposed to the top 5 for the franchise tag. It guarantees the original club the right of first refusal to match any offer the player might receive from another club.
That's what the Chiefs would give to Trey Smith. So you take the top 10 guard salary, average it out, which we just looked at that. That's going to be around $18 million at least.
One thing I learned,
the Bears could surpass that.
Linemen have an awkward thing in the CBA that it is not based on position of guard. Offensive line is lumped all together. So including tackles.
That's a lot of money, David, because I know a tackle
money.
who I think is making $28 million a year.
So the somebody did the math on Twitter I saw earlier. It'd be $25.15 million to franchise tag Trey Smith.
Oh, that pertains to the franchise tag, not the transition tag?
Correct. 25.15 is the
but the loose reporting here is that there will be no franchise tag applied to Trey Smith or anyone else on the Chiefs.
But that is what the average would have come out to be, which is over 25 million.
Well, I had a good conversation with the great Samo on Twitter earlier, and I hate talking to Samo because Samo's got that exceeded character limit on me on Twitter. So I can't continue good conversations with you, sir. But he was essentially saying along the lines of, well, why should we sign Trey Smith when we should be spreading the wealth on 4 new starters on the offensive line? Well, you're going to draft one of them. It'd be asinine not to have Braxton Jones come back. So now you're looking at I think we have the 4th most cap space of the Chicago Bears. Let's spend it on Trey Smith, man. Why are we afraid of blue chip talent?
4th currently, and you'd clear up 15 more by releasing Gerald Everett, Ryan Bates, and one other person that I can't remember off the top of my head. But
and I'm not of the camp of getting rid of Ryan Bates, but I know you guys are.
I mean, it's fine. I would almost honestly agree if Ryan Bates is somebody that Ben Johnson is interested in. You do need to give him an opportunity to kind of prove that he's not a freak accident waiting to happen.
Ryan Bates is the only interior offensive lineman that the Chicago Bears have under contract right now. Tevin
if he's
Jenkins,
healthy, I wouldn't even mind him at
no one's under
center.
contract.
If you
that was the original plan.
Yeah. If you strike out on these free agent centers, which I still say priority number 1 is to get one of those free agent centers, those top tier guys, I think my plan B would definitely just be re-sign Ryan Bates or keep him here, draft a younger center to kind of learn, and then by next year, Ryan Bates is out of here and the younger center takes over. But that's a whole separate story.
Do you want to look at some of the center slides?
Yeah, if you want to throw up those names while I'm mentioning this point, it might be good timing. I just wanted to say, go for it, Dave. Go for it, Dave.
No, Carl, you go. But before you throw up the slides, Paul, give me
just wanted to say, why are we so quick to want to cut Ryan Bates for cap when we gave up draft assets for him? I value the draft assets, and whether it was a good trade, a bad trade, or anything else in between, you maximize the value by even just having him on the roster next year for his veteran leadership. Especially if we're considering drafting an offensive lineman to start on the 2025 roster, which I'd say almost all Bears fans essentially are planning on.
But, I mean, you're handicapping yourself because you're talking about it from a point of view that, hey, this is going to work out. But at the end of the day, you can't sit there and handcuff yourself to mistakes, even if they did cost you draft capital. So, even like Velus Jones Jr., just because he cost you a 3rd-round pick doesn't mean you sit there and just kick a dead horse over and over.
Has Ryan Bates directly fumbled a snap on a kickoff and lost a game on his own?
Listen, I'm just saying in general, I wouldn't handcuff myself to a player just because we spent draft capital on him. Now, if Ryan Bates is worth keeping or not, I think, that's different, but I wouldn't do it just because we spent draft capital.
I think I can settle this a little bit right here. I think at the end of the day, he didn't cost us any draft capital, but not getting rid of Nate Davis over the summer handicapped the team by forcing you into a position where you kind of were forced to try to get what you can out of him, rather than cutting your losses, finding a replacement lineman, investing in that position differently. And that ended up being a net negative, because I can tell you right now, as anybody who watched that season, if you had to just cut Nate Davis in the offseason, invested some extra money, and then made, that position a $20 million position, but you got some more out of it than Nate Davis, nobody would have been looking at that as a loss. Yeah, you would have eaten the money from Nate Davis for 1 year, but overall, you're going to be in the net positive. So that's all I'm saying. I'm with you, Carl, on the idea that Ryan Bates is not a terrible 2nd or 3rd choice, But if it's somebody that Ben Johnson isn't that interested in, like I said, if you strike out, yes, you can do it. If you're not striking out, you shouldn't be doing it because you are handcuffing yourself to forcing to try to start Ryan Bates, not investing in center anywhere else along the draft. And now what? We're starting Doug Kramer at center because we were like, well, this time Ryan Bates will be fine. No, it needs to be addressed first. And then Ryan Bates is you've struck out on everything else, then you can do it.
Yeah, no, you cannot rely on Ryan Bates, and that's going to be the last thing I say about it.
Yeah, so Trey Smith, good for him. Go get fucking paid. You're an all-pro. You're a 2-time Super Bowl winner. If I'm being honest, from Trey Smith's perspective, if money ends up being the same everywhere, I'm not going to lie to you, Washington's probably a better landing spot for him. If I'm Trey Smith and it's all the same, if I'm looking at playoffs, the division, if I'm looking at who I'm going to compete against for the next 5 to 10 years.
But the Eagles,
well, if you want to make your name, like there's a direct sample size that we just got, aka the last football game of the year, where Trey Smith played against Jalen Carter. If he wants to get paid the exact same amount of money between the Bears and the Redskins and choose to play against Jalen Carter 2-3 times a year, that'd be stupid in my opinion. But
only way you're stopping Jalen Carter is with the 12 gauge.
Shout out to the behind the scenes discussion. Good job, Paul. Great job, Paul.
What a deep cut. So any other place? Are you guys saying Chicago for Trey Smith? You guys are leaning that way? Best option, best landing spot?
The Patriots, you might as well throw up the great Scottish Bears comment. I mean, he mentions how bad the New England Patriots offensive line is.
Sorry, Paul.
There are a lot of options that they have, and I feel like a parrot on this, but I watched Mike Vrabel's introductory press conference, and when he talks about building the trenches, there's something about Mike Vrabel that I believe him. So whether that's they go Will Campbell in the draft at 4, sign Trey Smith, God knows they probably need both. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots sign Trey Smith.
I think the worst thing for the Bears and people who want Trey Smith is T. Higgins not being a free agent because that frees up New England to spend the hard bucks, the quick banger bucks.
If they fall in love with Tutoria McDonald, the silly head, that tall guy from Arizona, he might be a pick for the Patriots now at 4 if they can't get T. Higgins.
The Trey Smith sweepstakes is going to be, we're all going to just open up the phone that day and be either really, really fucking happy or go, son of a fucking bitch. Like, goddamn Patriots, they did it, or Washington did it. So, and then also one more out there, Houston.
Really,
I've heard Houston.
That much of a difference?
I like it, Dave.
Impact-wise?
Say that?
I think
does a top-tier guard really make that much of a difference impact-wise?
Hold on, Dave. I'd love to hear Dave's thoughts while I cook up some gas.
Yeah. I mean, depending on the year, I think guards are the year-to-year type of statistical anomaly because Quentin Nelson went from like best guard and best lineman overall in the league to kind of if he's fine, top 10, top 15, and now he's kind of like, I think it all matters, and guards are weird, and every lineman is weird other than left tackle because if you don't know them, that means they're probably doing a good job. The only reason we know who the fuck Trey Smith is because he's a free agent and we need him on the Bears. So otherwise, if Trey Smith just had a 5-year contract, I don't think any one of us would have known his name.
One thing that I do like about both lines of the football, defensive line and offensive line, is they are the only positions that really don't rely on somebody else. Like a wide receiver really relies on a quarterback. So does a tight end to sit there and get numbers. And, a running back relies on his offensive line. These guys up front, they're just doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? They're relying on just the guys next to them. But I mean, it's really just, a one-man game.
Really small little tidbit here. I'm not going to play the clip, but Nicholas Moriano, he did a film breakdown. I saw a little clip, right? So he was just saying how athletic and how good of a center prospect that Drew Dalman looked. And obviously the Bears have been needing a center probably since Olin Kreutz retired. So Drew Dalman would be a great option for the Bears at center if they wanted to go that route. But what do you guys see? I see number 97 on the Eagles, a defensive tackle, trying to crash in and stop the run, and his guard is helping the center, Drew Dalman. So guard play is going to help a guy like Coleman Shelton, if we retain him for cheap, look a lot better. Then you can have that money for Trey Smith, go out and get a prospect at center, develop him. I don't know, man. I do think that spending the money on Trey Smith at the end of the day here is going to be very much worth it.
I absolutely agree. I don't think there's any doubt that he would be worth every penny. I think he's number 2 on the list for a reason. The only reason he's gone, guys, is the Chiefs just can't afford all these players. I mean, that's the only reason you let a guy like this go. He's on a Hall of Fame trajectory as a guard.
And if Travis Kelce retires and the Chiefs retain all of their players and go on another Super Bowl run, I need to see every piece of communication between Taylor Swift and anyone affiliated with the NFL. Because if there's some convoluting going on there to pull the strings, I'm going to be one pissed off Bears fan.
Because you mentioned Travis Kelce, I could just totally see Mark Andrews going there and replacing him. I think that's a perfect fit.
If they cut him, I don't know any of the financials with him, but at this point, it's getting really close, in my opinion, for the Ravens to say, you know what, Mark Andrews is literally taking away from the production we could be getting from Isaiah Likely, because that's what I think of Isaiah Likely. He's fantastic, but you might be onto something there, Paul.
Yeah. Going through the list a little bit, just because I don't think we need to do all 25 players. I'm going to name a few here. It'd be a drag. Chris Godwin, Ronnie Stanley, Sam Darnold, Stephon Diggs. Any major comments on any of those guys from you?
Ronnie Stanley, I do have a slide on, so if we could just hold off and we can get to him maybe when I do the slides.
Yeah. Chris Godwin, I think, should stay with the Bucks, but I just feel bad for him.
God damn you. Yes, yes. Help me support my argument that I'm trying to make as publicly known as possible. Yeah. Baker Mayfield, top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and he's not 4, 3, 2, or 1, but he's definitely 5, right? Baker Mayfield plus Chris Godwin is a lot of production. So for Chris Godwin's sake, I would say familiarity, stay there. I would like to know what you guys think about Stephon Diggs, because that's a guy who didn't bet on himself, but essentially was okay with going to the Texans with a restructured, unprotected deal. And the worst possible outcome for him was he tore his ACL and he tore it early. So I don't know where he's going to go or how much money he's going to make, but my gut's telling me he should just run it back with Houston.
I don't disagree. I think if not, the only teams that you'd have to go to are team-friendly contracts and guys that strike out and are Super Bowl ready, like teams that strike out. So Chiefs coming to mind, but that's just because they always need a number 1. He's going to be too expensive, I would say. Other teams that do need wide receivers, I just don't think he's a fit. The only one that kind of maybe is one of those, okay, this guy can get a lot out of Stephon Diggs and maybe make him be a little less diva, is Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. I think he just kind of makes sense as a Charger. I don't think they're that far away. I think he can elevate the rest of the room. I think he'd probably be a 1 or 2 year deal guy anyway. But the teams that we're talking about that are in the T. Higgins category, I don't think any of those make sense in the same way. He shouldn't go to New England. He should not go to back to Buffalo. He should not go to the Raiders. He should not go to the Jets or none of those. So anything I would say is
I kind of like the Patriots for Stephon Diggs now, because that's what Vrabel was able to do with A.J. Brown, was to kind of keep that locker room cancer that is A.J. Brown under wraps. I think that's the value of a Jim Harbaugh, by the way. Jim Harbaugh wouldn't allow a locker room cancer like Stephon Diggs into the organization. But I feel like Vrabel could keep him being Stephon Diggs under wraps. That might be a good fit.
Yeah, I don't even think Stephon Diggs is that bad of a head case. I mean, he is, but compared to other guys in this league, like we've seen, I think what Mike Tomlin did with Antonio Brown for years was just spectacular. I mean, listen, Antonio Brown didn't just become crazy. He's always been crazy, right? And you sat there and you used the hell out of him. Punt returns, kick returns. He was a number 1 wide receiver in the league for a couple of years. And the second he got out of line and posted something from inside the locker room on TikTok or Twitter or whatever the hell it was, they were just like, okay, bye, guy.
Well, that's what the Steelers, repertoire is at.
Yeah, but then we got to see the true right? Antonio Brown after that. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
No, it definitely ran off the rails, and it's no coincidence that Antonio Brown became Antonio Brown after he got fucking blasted by Vontaze Burfict.
Mike Mayock, he called him Mike Mayonnaise.
Well, that's very deserved. I genuinely will go to bat for Paulski instead of Mike Mayock as a general manager. That was a terrible experience for those Raiders, but I'll digress on that.
How about any opinions on Sam Darnold, where he should go? I can start. I think he personally should take like a team friendly deal at like 25, 30 mil and stay with the Vikings. I don't think it's possible. And I think there's a team dumb enough to give him 40, and that team's probably like the Raiders.
He's getting 40, and it might be the Vikings. I mean, dude, the guy's 27 years old. He just had a really good season with you. Like, it's really hard to make the case to move on from a guy like that. I mean, dude, once you find a quarterback, these teams want to hold on to him. And at that age, I mean, 40 million a year, it's going to be the going rate. And I don't think it's the worst deal for the Vikings, especially if they could somehow find a trade partner maybe for JJ McCarthy and try and sit there and do that. I mean, I think it would be very tough to move on from Sam Darnold and start an unknown after the season you just had with him. However, he did fail you when the moment mattered most, right? So,
yeah, those last 2 games, he just looked absolutely terrible. And you could point to their left tackle injury for the Vikings. They were playing Cam Robinson, but I think the player's name is Christian Darisaw. He would probably help. I don't know, man. A couple things you just said. $40 million for a quarterback when the top AAV for quarterbacks nowadays, including Jordan Love, they're making $60 million. 40 is a bit of a bargain. If I'm the Vikings, though, if you can ride with the rookie contract, and you went from a known variable being, I can't think of Kirk Cousins' name. Go from Cousins to an unknown Sam Darnold, and you get all that production. I would not put it past the Vikings to get a lot of production out of J.J. McCarthy, and he would be infinitely cheaper, right? So if the Vikings feel that they're close, it would probably be more intuitive for them to move off of Sam Darnold. I personally feel that Sam Darnold has no chance to go back to the Jets. I would like to know what you guys think about that.
But real quick, though, doesn't this situation kind of mimic Baker Mayfield? Like, doesn't Tampa finally feel like, hey, we got to figure it out with Baker Mayfield? I mean, it just feels like the same thing's going on with the Vikings to me, where,
But they just never had a J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy is essentially a top 10 pick.
Yeah, but he got injured right away and didn't play for you. So that's not Minnesota's fault. I mean, they had the plan
preseason,
there.
He looked very good in the one game. And you drafted him for a reason, too, so...
You did, because you needed a quarterback, and now you found one.
Yeah, but the problem here is that, like we said, Sam Darnold has played him.
Handcuff yourself as a draft pick.
Sam Darnold played himself out of Minnesota is what he did, because I don't even think the Vikings expected to get from Sam Darnold what they got out of Sam Darnold. In fact, I know they didn't. So
correct.
He played himself out. I think in their minds, they're like, this was nice, but you can just go if that's what it's going to cost us. And like Carl said, if that's handicapping you for the next 5 to 6 years, because that's what, if you said he's 27, he's going to get a 4 or 5 year deal minimum. And that's just kind of what it's going to be. If you're Minnesota, you're handicapping yourself. I think you're creating your ceiling by keeping Sam Darnold, whereas JJ McCarthy gives you a ceiling elevator probably and a ceiling floor. I think also you get a guy who is a blank slate for Kevin O'Connell, and JJ McCarthy is probably going to be pretty fucking good anyway. I think the floor is pretty similar with Sam Darnold.
Let me explain something with JJ McCarthy, okay? JJ McCarthy was, I think, a true freshman for Michigan, and he was brought in as a change of pace quarterback to run like Justin Fields. And then in the Rose Bowl, the whole 2023 college playoff performance, he was a good thrower of the football. J.J. McCarthy is very, very talented, guys. Dave's hit the nail on the head. He's going to elevate the Vikings' best case. Worst case, could be worse. It's a rookie. But I think the floor is really similar. And, again, a lot cheaper.
Yeah. I think it also gives you more flexibility moving forward. If another quarterback, you want to replace him, and you want to replace J.J. McCarthy after 3 years, it gives you that option. But if you're stuck with Sam Darnold in that fucking contract, you're fucked. You're fucked for the next 3 to 4 years. JJ McCarthy, the Vikings, if he sucks, you can start thinking about drafting another JJ McCarthy replacement.
Yes. The Vikings brought in Joshua Dobbs out of necessity, and he looked okay. He's out of the NFL, it's my understanding, right? Or like a career backup now. But Kevin O'Connell is a bit of a magician when it comes to these things, man. I say roll with the rookie. Obviously, Michigan bias, and I hate to say that because I'm not a Vikings fan, but that just seems like the logical choice, in my opinion.
Sam Darnold feels like a Raider to me. I don't know. Him and Pete Carroll.
I don't know.
Russell Wilson too, but
Yeah.
I think I would look at it as how much does my quarterback room cost me in general. And so, I mean, I think there's a good chance that you could still keep Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy, to be honest with you, as well, because,
Correct.
yeah, I mean, it would make sense financially to me. Listen, but I wouldn't sign Sam Darnold to like 5-6 years. I mean, if you're looking at like a 3-4 year deal, kind of like what Kirk Cousins got, I don't know, man. That'd be pretty tempting to me.
Do you know what the problem with that, Paul, is? Is that now JJ McCarthy and Sam Darnold leave your team at the same time. And JJ McCarthy would say, fuck you, and leave and get signed somewhere else and get redrafted. Honestly, if you keep Sam Darnold, I think the most logical thing is to make JJ McCarthy basically this year's best quarterback prospect and get like literally a top 5 to top 10 pick for him. Because
I
if you
doubt
put
that
JJ
you can
McCarthy,
do that coming
I
off
think
of the
so.
knee injury. I
think
love
so.
the thought process, especially if you say we know what we have with Sam Darnold. He's our starting quarterback. We're not going to let him see the preseason field. We're going to have JJ McCarthy take all snaps in the first through third quarter of all 3 preseason games. Give the biggest sample size you can. You would sucker into someone to get in a first round pick, but it wouldn't be a top 10 pick.
You could, but like it hurts me to think about how you could draft a guy and then he gets hurt and doesn't play, yet his yet his value increased.
Paul,
That's my exact point.
You need to understand how mediocre this quarterback class is this year. JJ McCarthy
do not let J2K earmuffs.
JJ McCarthy would be the undisputed first overall pick in this year's draft. Tennessee would draft him, and they'd probably put the pick in now.
Yeah, Paul, I adore Dane Brugler. I am the self-proclaimed mouth of Dane Brugler. He said that Cam Ward, who's at the top of this draft class, would be the 7th quarterback selected in 2024 after Bo Nix.
I mean, I've just watched these guys get drafted high, and I mean, look at Trey Lance, 3rd overall pick. What happened? So I think, I'm not going to sit here and just act like JJ McCarthy's a proven deal, because he hasn't proven it. He hasn't proven anything. So I don't know. To me, I think that that's risky to sit there. And with the team you have, I mean, guys, I thought Minnesota was going to be at the bottom of this division. I did not think they were very good. And all year I was waiting for that bubble to burst, and it never did. But it's like, can you afford to go through rookie quarterback slumps next year? Or do you think like this team is ready to win now? And if it's ready to win now, keeping things at the quarterback position consistent with Sam Darnold there may be enticing.
And that's a really good point, because what just happened to the team that beat you in Week 18 to get the #1 overall seed in the NFC? The Lions had their brain drained to the bottom of the basin, right? Like, the Vikings will think that they can win this division. Definitely.
I feel like regardless of either one of those quarterbacks starting, I think Minnesota, to me, this might be way too early type of predictions. Minnesota is my favorite for the next year's division. I think, like Carl, I think
Packers.
The Detroit Lions are going to have a little bit of a downturn. They kind of have to. If they don't, then Dan Campbell's a fucking god. I think the Packers are going to. I said if, goddammit, if he fucking gets first seed. If he gets first seed.
Understood.
The Packers, I think, are going to come back down to earth, and I can't fathom Jordan Love being good every year. He's just going to be shit one of these years. And then if nothing changes and Brian Flores and Kevin O'Connell just come in next year with more draft picks and either Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy, they're the favorite to me because they have the most consistent team right now. They're doing is adding good players and not losing anybody.
The Packers are very well coached, and the Packers have the luxury of not only playing the third schedule, like the third place schedule, but it includes a lot of weak teams. I'm not saying that the Packers are the best team in the division.
Bullshit.
You'll see. I fucking hate the Packers. I hate them with all of my being. They'll end with about 10 wins, 9 or 11.
Strength of schedule arguments more. Because I remember seeing a statistic where I think the Bears had the 3rd easiest schedule or some shit going.
And then it became the hardest because of how good their division did. I understand it.
It went from 29th to 3rd over strength. Preseason strength of schedule is one of the biggest crocs of goddamn shit I've ever seen in the NFL. And we need to stop using it because they end up being completely different at the end of the year. The Bears went from the 29th easiest schedule at the beginning of the year and ended up being the 3rd hardest by metrics of the exact same type. It is bullshit. Strength of schedule is bullshit. The Packers' schedule this year and what they're going to play next year, it does not matter. It is nonsense.
So what Dave is trying to say is that figures lie and liars figure, because I agree with that. Today I learned Jalen Hurts $99 million cap hit in 2029. So Dave, you are correct.
Yeah. Plank, thanks for stopping in, dude. We'll see you next time. I'm
Peace
going to
out,
run
brother
through
Plank.
some of these. Paulie, if you have offensive linemen, I'm going to kind of group them together
I have
as lame
centers,
as this is.
guards, tackles. I got slides for
I'm going to
all.
read off some names for you guys. And Paulie, if you hear any that you have a slide for, you feel free to pop them on. I'm going to kind of group these guys together because they're middle of the list. Ronnie Stanley, you got Drew Dahlman,
Got him.
Will Freeze,
Got him.
Cam Robinson.
Yeah, dude, let me just toss up the slides because I think I have most of these names on there. So here, let's slide past the defensive guys here. Okay. And here.
There you go.
Center, Drew Dahlman. So, yeah, I mean, I just kind of put it together where, just some of the 24 statistics. And I added snaps played in there because I think that it does say a lot for how often a guy was on the field. And like one hit allowed, sure, but you only played 554 snaps, whereas some guys played double that the amount of snaps. But yeah, the market value for this 26-year-old center, according to Spot Track, and I got all these numbers off Spot Track, is $6.8 million a year for 3 years, $20.2 million.
It sounds like a deal to me. Obviously the Bears are going to fight for him. I don't know how many teams need centers. I feel like centers are probably everybody needs them. And I remember even last year, the Bears needed linemen, and we were talking about a lot of these guys kind of moving teams, shifting teams, and they all just kind of ended up staying where they were. So I think what a lot of people are, hoping for is that it's like Madden and you can just re-sign guys and just scoop them up and all that stuff. That's just not how it works. A lot of this is familiarity, families. If they're getting the same contract one place or the other, they kind of don't care, I think. Yeah. Would I like to see Drew Dahlman here? Absolutely. I think at that price, you should do it. At this point, you just need somebody who's going to fucking just stop the bleeding. So 3 years, 21 million sounds like a bargain. I have no arguments with that for the Bears, probably for the Texans, probably for the same goes for the fucking Washington.
In a vacuum, I don't know how important this is, but I would think that it is important. I think that it's very important to have a center and quarterback rapport. I think that being able to speak that language, call out the protections, all that good technical stuff, I think it's really important. So I think that the Bears should find a long-term answer at center sooner rather than later, because I'm of the firm belief that they found their quarterback solution for a long time. So if that means getting a Drew Dahlman, maybe you overpay in free agency to begin with. He's not that good, doesn't live up to the money, but if that's the added benefit of getting the most value out of your star quarterback, I think it's all worth it.
Agreed. And at that point also, it's like from Drew Dahlman's perspective, you've already been in this offense for years. Michael Penix just came in. You're not going to see a change at offensive coordinator, and you're in the weakest division in all of football. Why the fuck would you leave? So for Drew Dahlman, I mean, I hope we can get him if they want to. If not, I think Ryan Kelly's the second option. I would not mind a veteran stopgap for like 2 or 3 years while you develop a center, but
veteran stopgap. But like I mentioned earlier, if you need to get a lot of players re-signed on this offensive line for the Chicago Bears, and you're getting a guard in Trey Smith who could potentially elevate the center next to him, why not run it back with Coleman Shelton? There's already familiarity there. And I know we've all seen the clips of him getting bull rushed. Yeah, again, I kind of like that room for the Bears from an economical standpoint. You already have a backup center potentially with whether it's Ryan Bates or Coleman Shelton, and they can flip-flop, right? Someone gets injured, someone has arthritis, whatever joke you want to make. I think that'd be an economical option to pair with a blue-chip icon being Trey Smith.
Next slide.
Yep.
Ryan Kelly. So 31-year-old center, yeah, one penalty, 1 sack allowed, 1 hit allowed, 11 pressures, 600 snaps played. Spot Track has him for 1 year going somewhere for $10 million.
See, to me, that's why if you go back one, Spot Track does not feel correct, because if Ryan Kelly's a 1 year, $10 million guy, but somehow Drew Dahlman's only worth 7, absolute nonsense. Drew Dahlman deserves probably more money per year and a longer term deal. So I like
That's where
Ryan
we get
Kelly
into the
as a
weeds, right?
stopgap, but yeah.
That's where we get into the weeds, right? The veteran wants to get paid more money. You can earn that more money if you don't get injured, if you hit these incentives, if you win a game in the playoffs, right? So that's where this gets the numbers get a bit convoluted. I'm always going to fall back on the thought process that the salary cap is a myth, and the numbers don't necessarily matter to me unless it's, gargantuan. But
Yeah, David, I had to base it off something. So Spot Track just
No, I get it.
It's, the easy fallback option for me. So when
I did see a comment in Jeremy Munoz where he saw something about a 3 to 38 million. That sounds more accurate. 12 mil a year, and I would do it. Dude. At the end of the day, I would say center is the most important position that you can invest in this offseason. I'd feel much more comfortable if everything just doesn't work out your way and you can get Drew Dahlman plus drafting Trey Booker or getting Mekhi Becton. I feel more comfortable at that than getting Trey Smith and running him back with Coleman Shelton. I'd feel much more comfortable with that pair than the other pair. So
if you want to start talking about Mekhi Becton, I mean, Scottish Bear already put my thoughts on this in the comment. I mean, Mekhi Becton reminds me of the right guard version of Tevin Jenkins. Talented prospect, couldn't cut it at tackle, injured.
Yeah. Next slide.
So just to put things into perspective too, total snaps throughout an entire year. I mean, what you're looking at 60 snaps a game between runs and passes or so. And so you're looking somewhere between 1,000 to 1,100 snaps for a full year. So 600 snaps, definitely you're missing some games. And there you go, boys. 21 snaps played for Coleman Shelton.
It feels
whenever I hear Adam Mason
see it side
talk
by
about
side,
this,
it's not that bad. 4 penalties is not horrendous for the way that offense went all season. 3 sacks allowed, 3 hits allowed, and 26 pressures puts him at 58th. That's really, really fucking bad. But like Carl said, I put a lot of that on the guard play around him because he was there.
The revolving door. Who's the guy from the practice squad we had playing guard against Arizona? I don't know, man. The one thing I'll say about these penalty stats too, I love when the NFL referees will make a false start call and they say everyone but the center, but the penalty is on the center. So I don't know if that ever comes into effect. But
I have a short I made. It was when Justin Fields was still here, where the ref goes false start. Everyone on the offensive line, just everyone.
One of the best referee. I don't know if you guys remember this. I think somebody got kicked in the nuts, and the referee call was personal foul, giving him the business.
Yeah. I remember that. That was hilarious. That was the late 1990s. Yeah, that was a good clip.
Next slide.
The business. Yep.
Next slide. All right, so now we move on to guards. So those were just the 3, the couple centers I had. We talked about Trey Smith a little bit. Do you want me to just move on from this one?
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you know what his snaps played were, or is that not available?
It is available, and I just forgot to put it on there. Let me look it up real quick.
I will tell you, I don't think that he has missed much time in his entire career, not just 2024. Talk about an Iron Man. That's why I'm such a proponent of signing this guy, right? You can start to kind of build your economics with the thought process of paying Caleb Williams like a starting quarterback with Trey Smith. Give him Caleb Williams' salary, $60 million a year. I could give a rat's tail. And then once you have to pay Caleb Williams, then you switch that around. But giving him big money is not a concern of mine whatsoever, man.
Neither did I. And I like this comment because when you see it this way, and then I like these slides, and Matt saying same pressure amounts. Does Shelton look a little bit better now? So different because usually centers are not one-on-oneing players and defensive tackles, and your right tackle is going to be lined up over a nose tech and all that stuff. It's fine, but I agree. I don't think it makes Trey Smith look bad because it's a totally different thing. But it does make Coleman Shelton look a little bit better, in my opinion, because I have news to break, guys. The way Carl has been saying this, when you have Coleman Shelton out there on a fucking island and you have a rotating, a revolving door of guards, Guess what every defensive coordinator is saying? I don't even know who the fuck this guard is. Let's attack Coleman Shelton every game.
Yeah, that's the thing, though, right? Like, when you're designing the offensive line, I don't see a team wanting their center to be on an island. The center is supposed to help out the guards. So if you have a Tavondre Sweat who's designed to attack the center, you need to be able to identify that and get a guard to help. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, and just from putting together film on Caleb getting sacked, I got to tell you, man, early in the year, and David, I know you said this to me right after the Houston game. You go, well, there's the blueprint for how to beat the Bears offensive line: interior pressure, interior pressure, interior pressure. And a lot of it was Nate Davis. A lot of it was Nate Davis messing it up, putting like Coleman Shelton out there on an island. And like, it was a shit show. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a unit thing when it comes to the offensive line.
Yes. And I'm not saying that just signing Trey Smith and running it back with the bozos we have now was going to be good enough. It's just a starting point. But I don't know, man. I had a point. I'm going to digress on this, but again,
here's the thing: you sign Trey Smith. He's your best offensive lineman for the next 4 years, bar none, undebatable. No matter who you draft. So
let's take a look at some other guards, huh?
Yeah.
So we have Will Fries, 26 years old, cheaper than Trey Smith. But
coming off of a monster
268 snaps played.
He's coming off of a monster injury. I think it was his tibia, something. Big leg injury, right? I'm sure he'll be healthy, but I don't know, man. He's the guard playing right guard next to, I don't know who the tackle is, but any interior offensive lineman who's somewhat near Quentin Nelson is going to look better than they probably are, right?
That also 6 pressures allowed in however many games, 4 games, not that great of a number. And
also, I want to remind everybody, what's his name? John Michael Schmitz was the center. Went 1 pick after Tyreek Stevenson.
But we're talking about the center for the New York Giants.
I'm just saying you could have
deserve a gold jacket.
No, but you could have had some of this stuff ironed out if you just did it differently, Carl. We wouldn't be in a position where we need to replace 4 out of 5 linemen here. You know what I mean?
It is to Paulie's point. It's just been an absurd level of neglect by Ryan Poles.
That's why we got a BJ.
That's why I'm saying you overpay this man a little bit. I mean, Spotrac has him at 10.3 a year. To me,
we talked about this. I'm going to bring it up.
13 a year, man. I'd pay
not
this guy.
Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Even if you kiss God on the lips, it's not going to happen.
And for all the talk of him being injured, missing time, 738 snaps played. I mean, compared to some of these other guys that I've seen, it's not the worst, man. So,
and again, I think he's a guy that you put on a good offensive line and a good coach, and he's gonna look tremendously better.
Let's talk about it. Here, let me get this shared on the screen with you guys real quick, and then I'll do my spiel. I'll just verbalize what we've talked about in text message. I mean, the direct comparison for Tevin Jenkins is the player that was drafted in the same draft class as him and had the same career arc. Sam Cosmi, drafted, who was a tackle, moved into guard, little bit of injury concerns. I can almost promise you Tevin Jenkins will not get anything less than this, framework here, right? 17, 18 million a year. If Robert Hunt is getting $20 million, legitimately, what is stopping the Detroit Lions from giving Tevin Jenkins $18 million a year?
Dude, if you could get Trey Smith for 20 a year, and
Tevin Jenkins, we're talking about 25.
Okay,
we're talking
25?
about 25.
All right. Yeah, so I mean, I guess. Yeah, dude, at 18 and a half, I'm good. I'd move on.
My thoughts are right there on the screen. I'd make sure the fucking door slammed him on his way out. Like, that is way too much money to be gambling on a player who, all-pro potential a year ago, but when it mattered the most, when Tevin Jenkins needed to earn this money for his new wife and new child, he decided to sit because of a calf injury. Let him go play for someone else.
If the door smacks him on the way out, it might just tweak his back injury.
Yeah, no amount of Pilates is going to stop that injury from reoccurring, man. Tevin Jenkins may have gotten injured reading this tweet.
I wouldn't be I wouldn't object to a transition tag now that I understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, fuck it. Why not?
Let's give him a transition tag and start the negotiations with Kansas City on how to swap these guards.
Yeah, let's get
And
some
then-
below the belt handshakes going. I mean,
And then Kevin Zeitler.
now this one,
34.
all the credit in the world to Adam Mason. This would be a fantastic no-brainer in my opinion. Guy's an Iron Man. He has familiarity with Ben Johnson's offense. He could play left guard if he's just playing 1B behind Trey Smith at right guard. Doesn't matter to me, man. This would be an ideal player for the Chicago Bears to acquire.
Father time catches up with everybody. 34 years old is what concerns me. I know he played a lot of snaps last year, but that doesn't mean that he's just going to continue to play a lot of snaps moving forward. I mean, at some point, the body does give out. But for 1 year, 10 million? Yeah, it's not bad, man.
I would like to address Scottish Bears here. I don't trust Ryan Pohl's evaluation of a lineman at this point. I think he's proved that he is not very good at it and who he likes and who he doesn't like.
I'd like to fight
And
back on Scottish Bear here too.
No, real quick. The only reason they moved Tevin to left guard is because they got Nate Davis. It's stupid.
And that's Ryan Pohl's problem. So.
Yeah. I was just going to say regarding him not liking Ryan Pohl's not liking Tevin Jenkins. Did Ryan Pohl's also not like Jalen Johnson when he asked Jalen Johnson to play third string, whatever he did? I think that was more of a testing period for the guys who were existing here, right? I don't know if it happened so much with Cole Kmet, but I don't have an issue with him essentially testing Tevin Jenkins. But I like that he's not bowing down to Tevin Jenkins because of the injury history. If you give big money to a player who's not going to play, that is a hyper negative as a general manager, in my opinion.
As a head coach, you're not going to tell me how my roster is going to work. I mean, you want to add these guys, you want to help supplement talent into the roster, sure. But at the end of the day, as a head coach, I'm going to sit there and decide who plays what position. And so, to me, a lot of that's also on Chris Morgan, Matt Eberflus, Shane Waldron, all the above. I mean, I don't think those guys knew what they were doing at all.
This might be a stupid comment, but I don't think it'd be insane to get both Kevin Zeitler and Trey Smith.
Absolutely would not be insane.
And
you're not going to get a Josh Sweat. You're not going to have Sweat bookend tackles.
That's fine. Here's the thing.
It is fine.
Here's what I'm learning. I'm not the most college football watcher. When we get into draft season, you can ask Paul. We need to start recording things that we think of guys who are going to be good and we watch the tape of and stuff. Toot our own horn, Paul. We're pretty good about it, right? We see a guy in college and we're like, I think he's going to be a good pro. He ends up being a good pro. The way that this draft class is coming out, and this is the earliest I've been getting into college football and the NFL draft. All I know about it from my early studies, and I've studied every group and all that stuff, it is the deepest by far at defense, defensive tackle, defensive end. It is an incredibly deep running back class, and it is a very thin and very top-heavy offensive line class.
I would not say top-heavy. It's just thin, period.
Thin, but even I would say, just again, there's going to be 4 guys taken in the first round. In most drafts, they're probably taken in the second, kind of thing.
I will double down. I'll embarrass myself right here on BEARSKIFILM, everyone. There will be 2 tackles drafted in the top 10 of this draft class. That's just how the NFL draft works.
I agree.
Case in point, J.C. Latham.
You're not wrong. The point I'm trying to make is invest your money in the offensive line with NFL pros. And I think this is going to be a generational, and this has just kind of been a shift in the NFL over the last 5 to 10 years. We've watched the offensive line play be dog shit across the 20 teams in the league. The 12 teams that have good offensive lines are usually, competing for playoffs and Pro Bowl and Super Bowls and all that stuff. And even some of the good teams, they have pretty bad or mediocre offensive line problems as well. You had the Chiefs being in the fucking Super Bowl, and they had 3 interior offensive linemen that were pretty damn good, Pro Bowlers, all pros, all that stuff.
And that is the all-pro team.
And one of the worst left and right tackle situations.
Yeah.
So there's situations where offensive line fucking sucks across the league. Invest $35 to $40 million of your $80 to $90 million of cap space this offseason, whatever it may be, end up becoming with Gerald Everett and all that stuff. Invest a good half of your money in the offensive line for 1 year. Where else are you going to spend it? It's Caleb or bust. and draft these young defensive linemen and defensive tackles, and you just drafted one of the best developmental defensive line head coaches or defensive coordinators in the league. He just develops good fucking players across the defensive line with scheme, with with development, all that good stuff. So it just makes no sense. That's what you should do. I don't think it's crazy. And I think I'm not like the first guy with the idea, but I just don't hear many people talking about like, well, you got to get either Trey Smith or Zach Martin. If it feels, get two of them. Get two of them and draft a third or fourth round.
I don't think it's possible to sign Trey Smith and then the next best center and or guard. Like, I don't think you can invest a cap hit of like $45 to $50 million on two players. But I agree with your idea. I mean, the Saints and I think Dennis Allen were directly responsible for drafting Trey Hendrickson in the 5th round. They can identify talent. We don't have to take an edge at 10 to be a rotational piece with everyone else. Obviously, I value Mason Graham above everything else. If you can trade up for Mason Graham, get him, and figure out the offensive line later. But outside of that, I really don't care what they do because there's so many different good options they can go. And this draft, again, I'm hearing between picks 20 and 60, same exact quality player.
And then just added James Daniels in here just because he's available. I don't think
I'll speak for PJ from the BCP. He loves the idea of getting James Daniels back, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I agree. Paul, I don't know if you have any more slides. We could just kind of run through some of these players that we've seen, or Mekhi Becton, if you have any more. Oh, son of a bitch.
There he is. No, I got more. I still got left tackles.
Oh, good. Let's keep going. Mekhi Becton, just I don't know what it is about him. I don't want him. I'll leave it at that.
No, I mean, he was the weak link on a very fantastic Eagles offensive line that helped win the Super Bowl, right? Like, he gives up a lot of pressures. I don't know. So you're saying in these graphics that he gave up 25 pressures and Trey Smith gave up 24? Something about Trey Smith, those numbers don't seem accurate to me, but
yeah, they're just according to PFF. So
PFF owned by Chris Collinsworth by chance, right? So I'll leave
that. But I mean, but I saw some of those numbers on a different website as well. But still,
I'm sure they're accurate.
Yeah. And then Brandon Scherf.
Brandon Scherf is who you should get if you strike out on Zeitler.
Yeah, this is a Plan C. Wow, I couldn't say that. Plan C option for the Chicago Bears, in my opinion.
Yeah. And
another guy,
this guy and Scherf are side by side.
I mean, he reminds me more of Tevin Jenkins. Flashed all-pro potential with major injury concerns. The 638 snaps is probably indicative of him not playing a full season. I can't remember exactly what happened with this guy, but again, not a guy that I would prioritize by any stretch.
No.
And then we get into left tackles. Now, I think based off the situation that the Bears are in, personally, they're going to have to sit there and, you can't replace all these guys. So whether you hold on to Braxton Jones for another year as a Band-Aid, or whether you overpay Tevin Jenkins, or one of those two things needs to happen. So I'm not sure if we're going to actually go out there and target a left tackle in free agency. However, I'm not going to say that, it's not beyond upgrade, right? So just to entertain it, let's go through some left tackles.
Regarding the Bears, I think it would be a mistake for the Chicago Bears to not plan to have either Karan Amagaji or Braxton Jones be their starting left tackle. Braxton Jones coming off the injury, but if he's healthy, he should start, obviously. Not because I think he's an all-pro, but just because of the value you get out of that contract, right? Squeeze the lemon on the 5th-round pick, one more year, and then address it moving forward. But for them to spend valuable assets this year to have a marginal upgrade at best, I do not think it's worth it.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said marginal upgrade. So, like, how much of an upgrade is it really? However, I'm satisfied with the value I've gotten out of Braxton Jones to this point.
And if we're talking about left tackles in this draft, we're talking about physical traits that would match Karan Amagaji. Let's have Karan develop this year at the very least under a competent coaching staff. God forbid he's able to develop in preseason, OTAs, training camp, and fucking be the starting left tackle and just beat Braxton Jones outright. That would be ideal because you drafted him in the fucking 3rd round. Are we just going to piss away the 3rd round draft pick?
I got one name for you guys, and then it's a Braxton Jones comparison that it doesn't really just need much more description afterwards. Charles Leno Jr., Braxton Jones is Charles Leno Jr., and that's what his career path should be that. Let him leave next year. Let him sign with somebody else. He'll play out another 4 years. He'll be fine. He'll be serviceable. He'll be 18th best left tackle in the league.
If he proves to be healthy and starts and looks okay, and you feel comfortable with Karana Magaji behind closed doors, trade him away like you did with Cam Robinson, like what the Jaguars did. Recoup a little something after you got a really good contract value out of that 5th-round pick.
Then do you sit here and target a guy that you don't have to sit there and sign for multiple years, like Joseph Noteboom, for example, to sit there and just even be a backup in the role, to just have there? Because, I mean, obviously our offensive line is thin.
I mean, I like the idea of retaining a guy like Matt Pryor. Matt Pryor is a Swiss Army knife. He could play either guard or tackle position as a backup. I'm not saying you want him starting. Don't have him be the first name on the starter sheet, but I don't know, man. I don't think that you need to kick the tires on these marginal upgrades at left tackle.
I think we're also getting to the bottom of the barrel here of like players that we will even have anything to
now. This
about.
Ronnie Staley guy, he had an insane year, it's my understanding, for the Ravens. So if he doesn't go back to the Ravens, he's probably going to go with a team that has very obvious like contender status, and I don't know what that would be. Maybe he goes to the Redskins to help push them over the top. I don't know.
Houston, but no, they have a left tackle already with Tunsil. So
yeah, even though I've heard Houston fans say the most nasty things about Laramie Tunsil, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, David, I know you mentioned this guy's name earlier. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm with. I think the most logical thing for him to do is to go back, because otherwise, where else are you gonna go?
Yeah.
Get this guy's face out of my face.
Yeah, this was that like old school move, that resurgence for the Jets, whatever you want to say. I mean, he's just another guy. Like, he reminds me of the guy that the Bears had that they called from the fishing boat. I can't think of his name. He was a great player, though.
He was the left tackle against Myles Garrett, Paulie.
He was the left tackle that absolutely erased.
Orlando Pace.
No, I'm not talking about Orlando Pace. I'm talking about the left tackle for the Bears that had that insane block on Fred Warner that sprung Justin Fields on that crazy run. He was essentially retired, and the Bears called him in.
Yeah.
I can't think of his goddamn name.
No, it's not Orlando Pace. David, he was off
more modern,
Eagles, I think. 39
yes.
years.
Oh,
yes,
Jason Peters. Jason Peters.
God bless your brain, David. Thank you. Yeah, this is my Jason Peters comp. Just like a decent player who's old, long on the tooth, and will fill in for a contender that had their left tackle go down out of a catastrophic injury or something.
And then this guy's same thing, just kind of like a rotational piece. So I guess we could move on, right? Yeah. That would be all.
Wow, he's a 25-year-old left tackle with a market value of $2 million, and the best left tackle in the NFL is making $28 million. This guy could suck.
So the only other, I think, position I have slides for is defensive ends, but that would be all the offensive linemen.
I think we save that for another time, but I do have some just notable names that if you guys have any comments on, it's a little bit more exciting positions, so you guys can kind of comment on it.
We've got to talk about one thing that's on the thumbnail of this video.
Real quick. Marquise Brown from the Chiefs makes sense on the Bears. I think he also makes sense on the Lions. I think he makes sense for a lot of teams. Yeah. Marquise Brown, little speedster.
Well, J-Mo's their speedster, right? So maybe there's something going on with Deebo Samuel. He's going to get traded, cut. Maybe he goes to the 49ers, something like that.
We got Amari Cooper. I think Amari Cooper should take the best contract. I think he should switch teams, go to the Chargers.
I could see Amari Cooper not signing with the team until like week 4. Like him just saying, you know what, my body needs to recover.
DeAndre Hopkins should stick with Kansas City, I would say. Probably.
I've got bad news for you. He's retired.
Did he?
Officially, yes. No shit. He realized that he was one of the reasons why the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl, and he needed 100%. To save his name before it got tarnished too far.
And then some of the last guys on the list, Keenan Allen should be a Chief. He's not going to be. He's probably going to go back to L.A.
West Coast guaranteed reunion with Mr. G Herbo, or he'll be going to the Rams to replace essentially Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, and then Aaron Jones and Najee Harris. Please do not fucking talk about Najee Harris to the Bears one more time.
Hold on. So we talked about how this running back class is deep. There is going to be a running back who is going to be productive in this 2025 season who gets undrafted. That's how good this NFL draft class is at the running back position, in my opinion. it's not out of the realm of possibility that Najee Harris signs for like $2 million.
He is screaming to me.
Najee Harris to raise the floor for the Bears at like a disgusting rate, like literally making as much money or less than Roshan Johnson.
You know who he is? You know who he is? He's Donta Foreman.
Yeah, abso-fucking-lutely. Thank you for that.
He's Donta Foreman. He's the third running back on a team that doesn't really need it. He's the legs. He's going to get $2 to $5 mil, like you said. He is Donta Foreman. And he's going to be out of the league.
And he's not. And Deontay Foreman could be a better running back, like just straight up. Like I don't think anything of Najee Harris. I don't care what the advanced metrics say. Whenever I watch the Steelers play football, Najee Harris, when it matters, just gets absolutely erased. 2.5 yards on a cloud of dust, and then their quarterback is asked to throw the football to a terrible wide receiver core, and they've got nothing. You get a Steelers team that loses 5 in a row to end the season every year.
And that's why I don't draft a running back in the first round, because when they fall off, they fall off.
It would be, Paul, I got bad news for you. There's going to be 3 running backs probably drafted in the first round this year.
Boom! You fucking stole my thunder, son of a bitch.
And it is the one time I think that the second and third, not even the one time, I don't believe Ashton Genty will get drafted by Jerry Jones because he's going to be coked out of his mind, and it's going to be great.
Like me?
Yeah, crack pipe Carl. And then we're going to, what we should do, and then not should, it's a bottom of the first round value pick this year for a team like the Steelers, for a team like the Chargers, and they will absolutely not regret that choice. Omarion Hardy from North Carolina.
Hampton.
Omarion Hampton, to me, I think will absolutely have better stats and probably a better NFL career than Ashton Genty.
Write this down, Paul. 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 40 seconds, because that clip will go viral here in a couple of years.
That dude is a fucking stud. Get the fuck out of here. And then the running back.
Bro, he's Diet Walter Payton. I love to embarrass myself publicly. He's Walter Payton.
Awesome.
Like that kid has the juice, man. I've gotten to the point where if somehow, some way, the Chargers don't get their hands on Ashton Genty, it will be Omarion Hampton. And I'm getting close to the point where I would say Omarion Hampton could get
from Ohio State.
Travion Henderson. He will not get past the Raiders and Chip Kelly at 37. So if someone wants to trade up for him, it's possible, and in my opinion now probable. But again, I'm getting close to the point where Omarion Hampton guaranteed 2,000 all-purpose yards for the Chargers when he's drafted there. Like, Absolutely. It is a foregone conclusion. There's going to be a run on running backs. End of day 1, start of day 2. 10 running backs in the top 64? It's possible.
And honestly, with how good they are, that should happen.
Yeah, it should.
They are going to be... That's why this year, I feel bad for Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. It's going to fucking suck watching these rookies get paid jack shit, and you're going to be like, I just won a Super Bowl. I need to reset the market. You ain't resetting shit, buddy. This running back class is going to break that whole argument up real quick.
Yeah.
And Munoz wants to know, so the Bears get a running back? Yeah, they do.
Third round. They'll still get a good one in the third round. I
would love Omarion Hampton at 39. Me and the great Polsky over there to my right, we mocked it a month ago, and everyone laughed. They said, you guys are the worst. One of the comments I just read from that video today, Paul, worst amateurs I have ever seen. And my direct response to that, fuck you.
Oh, man, that's not even that bad. If I told you half the bad comments I've read. So, but I welcome all of them.
I'm not there yet. I haven't gotten to that level yet.
Honestly, to be honest with you, like if people know so much and this and that, then like go work for these teams. Go work.
You know what's gonna be funny?
Just some guys.
That's what I'm talking about, Paul.
We can go back. We can do a final mock draft after everything. I bet you we're gonna be close as fuck. Like me, you, and Paul should not pay attention to any mock drafts that come out, and I bet you ours will be close as fuck to the rest of them because these experts and the college guys, they're re-saying all the same shit that we all hear on a daily basis whenever we watch a combine thing. And look at Gray Zabel. He went from the third round to the first round. Everybody saw it. You're not fucking reinventing the wheel here. Our mock drafts are going to be similar as fuck. We did it last year, Paul, when it was like a final mock draft. We finally did one for the Bears. It was like the same shit. We're all hearing the same info. So fuck you. Omarion Hampton is going to be absolutely end of the first round. Like, Getting him at 39 would be a fucking steal in a month. Wait,
and I got called an asshole. I got called an asshole for it, and I was spot on.
You hear that, everybody?
Saying 3 running backs are going to get taken in the first round, and I'm going to be called an asshole.
You hear that, everybody? Fuck you. And by the way, thanks for joining and watching. We appreciate all.
Knowing our luck, there'll be 4 quarterbacks drafted before the Chicago Bears draft at 10, and we'll be just totally screwed.
Awesome.
I love Adam Mason. How's it going, buddy?
For sure. I'll wear it. I'll wear it loud and proud, Adam.
I have 2 real quick free agents one more time before we finish up and talk about what we really want to talk about.
We're setting ourselves up for this Richie Incognito talk.
We are.
We really are. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I think Fields
Russell
feels
Wilson
like a jet. Feels like a jet for Justin Fields and Russell
Wilson.
No,
I think that Justin Fields is a mental midget, and he knows that, and he will not accept going to New York, which is a smart move from Justin Fields.
That's a fair point. He dealt with this similar type of shit here, and
I want to ask you guys: Is Devontae Adams gonna get cut?
He's gonna get moved. Yeah.
So that's gonna be another piece that kind of
Green Bay
gets thrown out there. I think in the wide receiver pool.
Yeah, you're very accurate. But again, in my head, I've already accepted that Russell Wilson is a quarterback for the Raiders. I don't know if he's a starting quarterback for the Raiders, but that's where I just feel like that's ended up.
The quarterback room of Shadur and Wilson is just like writing on the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. If the Steelers were smart, the Steelers would retain Justin Fields and would stay very, very, very far away from this quarterback draft class. That's what they would do. And they would either strike gold with Justin Fields, which I wouldn't put it past the kid, but the more likelihood is they would finally have a losing season and they would be able to position themselves to acquire a good quarterback for the first time since Ben Roethlisberger. So re-signing Justin Fields on the low is probably a win-win for the Steelers.
Yeah, I agree, Carl. I think you can win with Justin Fields. And I mean, the Steelers went 4-2 with him. It's just, he's still raw and he's still got some things to work on, but I don't think he's a terrible quarterback by any means. I really don't.
Yeah.
Now, from what Scottish Bear, from what I've seen through the lens with their new head coach, whose name is escaping me, the man who was the cornerback, Aaron Glenn, the cornerback of the Jets, who conceded the fake spike from Dan Marino, by the way. I think that through a very far lens, Justin Fields, Aaron Glenn, that's a good pairing. But
I think also Aaron Glenn played Justin Fields for like 2 years as the defensive coordinator, saw him firsthand, and the Lions during those years really sucked the dick of Justin Fields. Dan Campbell always talking about how great he looked and terrifying, and Aaron Glenn was probably the first guy in his ear telling him how scary he looked. So that is a little bit of a match made in heaven.
Speaking of sucking,
I like it.
This is a great transition for Carl to be able
Richie Incognito. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, you were just okay. I see how it goes. No, hold on. Before we talk about Big Richie, the Hall of Fame should have been, let's talk about Matt Stafford. We're talking about the Steelers quarterback. Dave, you saw that ESPN clip of him saying that the Steelers could trade a second-round pick for Stafford to counteract what I just said. If the Steelers are so hell-bent on never having a losing season, going 10 wins and getting bounced in the wild card, that has Stafford written all over it. What do you guys think about Stafford being moved to the Steelers or somewhere else?
I feel like Stafford's either going to play one more year in LA or he's going to retire.
So if the Rams move on from Stafford, what do they do?
That's the question, right? There's 2 options that I see for the Rams in the event of Stafford leaving. One, Daniel Jones. Oof. 2, Aaron Rodgers.
Ugh.
Nasty, huh?
I would rather pay $40 million for Sam Darnold and match him up with Sean McVay.
Stetson Bennett. Did you know that me and Stetson Bennett are the same age, and Stetson Bennett has only played 1 year in the NFL?
I think you guys spent the same amount of time in rehab too.
Yeah, correct. I set you up. Bravo.
The wonderful Courtney Cronin had a little snippet out there where she said,
Carl,
Would you like to
Carl,
take a picture?
wait, Carl,
did
Carl,
she
Carl,
say,
wait.
would you like to take?
no, but she did say Aaron Rodgers to the Bears as a backup, which I think
Fuck her.
would.
She could
would
take a
not make
picture.
sense. Would
Courtney
not-
Cronin could take a picture for
I like
that.
Courtney Cronin a lot, but I think that one's a little bit out there. I don't know where Aaron Rodgers winds up, but if I was him, I would not be a backup anywhere. I'd retire first. So
He's going to retire there because he's not going to be a starter. I'm going to tell you that much.
you don't think some team's going to start him?
Steelers.
I
but
didn't
can't
defend this
imagine-
point enough earlier, but if Aaron Rodgers wiggles his way to any team and starts on any team in the NFL, it will be the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
No, I mean they have better
Oh,
options.
see, this is where Rodgers would rather retire than be a Tennessee Titan.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
That's just not going to happen. So
Yeah, so
Adam, Daniel Jones is not technically on the Vikings anymore. His contract has expired. The Vikings would much rather have maybe Daniel Jones on the dirt cheap for the Vikings as a backup, if that's what Daniel Jones want. But I've been hearing people say like Daniel Jones could go to any team and start because of how bad this quarterback draft class is. So maybe Daniel Jones finds his way to the Steelers, the Raiders,
Daniel
the
Jones
Jets.
feels like a Tennessee Titan so bad.
Oh my God. If Daniel Jones and Mason Rudolph stood next to each other, I would not know who is who.
Yeah.
Like that
It's
feels
just-
like a Steeler
I would hear
or
the
a
fucking.
Titan.
I would hear the banjo in the background, just ding-a-ding,
Yeah.
ding-a-ding.
man, I got to tell you guys, like when the 49ers drafted Trey Lance, there was that report that came out there saying that they offered a trade for Aaron Rodgers and it got shot down. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before he got
No,
traded to the Jets.
49ers. The
49ers.
49ers.
The 49ers
Before they
tried to
traded-
acquire Rodgers before the
Yeah,
Jets. Yeah.
man, for Rodgers' sake, that should have happened. Like that would have been his best bet as far as his career went. Now get out of the AFC, man. Like I don't know where you're gonna go, but get out.
He
of
cannot
the AFC.
hang with those boys. Yeah.
No. I feel like an entertaining idea is the big quarterback carousel. Brock Purdy leaves San Fran, goes somewhere. Sam Darnold goes somewhere. Rodgers replaces Brock Purdy in San Fran. But everything's going to be very status quo. Brock Purdy's getting paid. I'm sorry. It's just what's going to happen. Sam Darnold might get paid. Probably will get paid by Minnesota. And then you're going to just be stuck with these, mediocre ass Daniel Jones being a starter in Tennessee and Aaron Rodgers starting for the Raiders or some shit. It's not going to be the Raiders, but you know what I mean. So, Carl, you have been just begging for this. So I want you to start us off.
Do we want to throw a bone at Cooper Kupp? Last guy, real quick. He's going to get traded or cut. Any idea where he lands, or do we care?
Who is McVay's buddy?
Unfortunately, it's not George McCaskey as much as I would have loved for it to be, but
If you're the Bills, are you interested in Cooper Kupp?
yeah, there you go. That's
Yeah,
probably
that's a
great one.
perfect fit. Because that's Cole Beasley, but just roided up.
Roided up
Yeah, I
with
think
bigger
he
injury
definitely
concerns.
wants to go to a contender too. Like,
You're doing him a favor. If you're doing Cole Beasley, if you're doing a Cooper Kupp a favor, you're sending him to Buffalo for like a fifth.
I feel you.
All right, hit up Richie, Big Rich.
You're setting me up for Big Rich.
You do
So-
it. Break it off.
I can share my screen if you'd like. If we want to be able to read along, it might be a smart thing. We can give some credit to the Miami Herald. Good old Omar Kelly. Never heard of him, but he's the one who essentially released this. A lot of this news is not necessarily breaking, but essentially, I love how the article starts. Jonathan Martin lied. So again, a recap. Jonathan Martin, second-round pick. They tried to say that he was being bullied by Richie Incognito. And now we're seeing that essentially right here. I never believed for a second I was being bullied. So I need to pull up his Twitter as well, so I'll have to get to that. But essentially, Richie Incognito is going on a media tour saying that Bullygate was fake. And I don't know, man. These are the things that make the NFL what it is. Like, something like this resurfacing years later. It's just so good, man. I don't know. This is a crazy story to me, guys.
David, you want
mean,
to start?
If you want to believe the details of it all, and it was his mom and all that shit.
Let me get the Twitter open because that's where the juicy stuff is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, depends on where we're going with this and what we're believing and what everything. The facts of it is that Richie Incognito is liked around the fucking league pretty much unanimously by anywhere he played. Secondly, it's the fucking NFL. I remember Bullygate. I remember this was a little bit of a woke period in the NFL that just pissed me. It was Bountygate. It was Bullygate. It was
I was about to say Greg Hardy.
It was Deflategate. It was Greg Hardygate. I mean, it was kind of an obnoxious time in the NFL to begin with. This one was probably the one that pissed me off the most because I thought it was kind of fucking lame. It's bullying in the NFL. It's what do you call it? Hazing a little bit for rookies. It just never sat right with me at the time.
Now, David, not to cut you off, that was a blurb in that article. I didn't read it, but essentially said that the NFL, this was the stepping stone to graduate from hazing rookies by giving them haircuts of penises in their hair to now this woke stuff.
Oh, no. God, there's a dick shaved in his head. Oh, poor guy.
Look at all this bullying. Look at all this bullying that's going on the TL. I mean...
And I think Richie, I feel, again, the only victim here is Richie Incognito. Fuck that. Fuck Jonathan Martin. You're a fucking pussy. Your mom's a bitch. And yeah, that's poor Richie Incognito. He, like you said, it derailed a Hall of Fame career because Richie Incognito, yeah, he should have been.
I need to do my homework on this because I feel like if you looked at the advanced metrics, like this guy probably missed out on some All-Pros. And my shtick with the Hall of Fame is that were you ever the best player at your position in the NFL, maybe for more than just one lucky year, and then did you have a prolonged season of body of work? Richie Incognito was robbed of this. Whether he's an asshole,
I think he's got a lawsuit on his hands, if I'm being honest, like repaired damages in the range of at least 20, 30 million.
Yeah.
And just to Adam's point, I mean, that's why I'm blocked on Twitter by some people, right?
You had to do it.
I had to throw it out there. No, dude, yeah, a lot of people are soft. And like the NFL, there's no room for softness in the NFL. I mean, all these guys are tough. I go back to stories I've heard. Jesus, who was Mark Schlereth? Stink?
Yeah.
He once told me when he was on not told me, he once told Mike and Mike on ESPN 1000 that I was listening to that when he was on the Redskins, he got into it with one of the defensive linemen. And he goes, after practice, the offensive unit would go into the locker room first. So they'd get undressed, they'd hop in the shower, and then the defensive unit would come in. And he said this guy came in to the locker room, still mouthing off to him. He stepped out of the shower. And he goes, we were face and face. He's like, the guy still had his helmet on, full pads and everything. He's like, I'm butt naked. And he's like, we start going at it and fighting in the locker room. Like, dude, these guys are crazy. They're nuts. And I mean, honestly, to think for a second that like bullying is an issue or anything like that, I just think, dude, you're getting paid millions of dollars. Like, dude, man up. You know what I mean? So, hey, my buddy Eric, thanks for joining us, man. It's good to see you comment on here. Last person I actually thought I'd see in here, but yeah, thank you for watching. So, yeah, the problem I have with this whole situation is more with the NFL than anything else, because they sat there, they did an investigation, and they came out with these facts. And like, we're supposed to sit there and trust the NFL because they do suspend guys and things like that based off of their investigation. And now you got the guy coming out saying it's all bullshit and it's all lies. So
it was the same fucking thing.
So you know what the problem is when they do these investigations, they rely on people to speak up. Like, it's not like you're getting subpoenaed. It's not a legal thing. They're going to go through and interview people. And if you don't want to talk, you don't have to talk. You don't have to say anything. So if Jonathan Martin's the only guy that got to talk, that's where their facts came from. And it's just trash, man. Like, it really is. So the NFL needs to really take a look at their process for the way they investigate some of these issues and really kind of clean that up, man, because you should not this situation should not have gone the way it did for Richie Incognito, for sure.
Now, I think that Richie Incognito knew that Jonathan Martin didn't feel the way that his parents had kind of lashed out at, again, to protect Jonathan Martin's signing bonus instead of just leaving the Dolphins and losing out on that money, right? Like we talked about with T. Higgins' mother. You want your child, who's your moneymaker, to give you money. I understand that, but Cliff's comment here, Incognito should sue Martin, NFL, and broadcasters. Richie Incognito's attacking Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smith, in ESPN. Those are the guys who did it. It was the mainstream media that took off and ran with the negative media controlled by evil-ass Disney and just made a fucking fool of them. And in the process, they ruined a potential Hall of Fame career. Like, it's just total bullshit. And with the NFL needing to reevaluate their stance and their process, I totally agree, man. Like, if the NFL cannot be a stand-up and we can't believe them, it's starting to blur the line. And I don't believe this, but could the Redskins' success this year be because the fucking new ownership, they wanted to try and forget Dan Snyder, the sexual predator? Like, where's the line here? Like, you need the credibility from the NFL. This is bullshit.
I don't know how much more there is to say. I mean, I think honestly, to assume they have a process that needs to be reevaluated, I call total bullshit even on that. I don't think they have a fucking process. I think they just pretend that they have people walking around saying stuff, and then whatever way that the court of public opinion is swaying towards, they're going to be like, yeah, totally, that was the case. That is 100% true. Everybody, like, when Bountygate happened, and everybody was like, wait a second, they're headhunting NFL quarterbacks? What did you think was happening? What did you think was happening?
Oh, yeah.
Are you talking about the Saints?
I was like, what do you mean?
Are you talking about the Saints?
Like, yes.
And then they're like, well,
so the problem with that is if you're going to coach those guys on the Saints behind closed doors, just don't let me fucking know about it. But we all know it happens, right? But when you start to pay them money under the table, if it was, to give them that incentive to hurt players, that's where the problem is.
Dude, you got incentive for sex.
Anyway.
You're literally paying these guys out there to go get sacks.
We see good sacks nowadays get flagged for 15 yards, and 2 of those would result in an ejection. Talk about woke. So a sack is definitely not the same as, rolling into someone and tearing their ACL like what happened to Tom Brady. That's apples to oranges.
Right.
But you know what the problem is, Carl, is it's still fucking happening. And it's not going to change. And whether they're getting a bonus under the table now anyway, you've got hip drop tackles that are happening and nobody fucking cares. You've got guys who are still
shout out TJ Edwards.
You've got Aziz Al-Shair, fucking knocking people unconscious.
Bro, we made a short from one of our earlier NFL ski episodes, and we got attacked for that. All these Texans fans saying it was a clean hit, he was sliding late. What the fuck are you talking about?
Dude, and then
Aziz Al-Shair should be ejected from the USA, not just the NFL.
You have quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes going out there taking advantage of the rules.
Right,
because
and that's why we talked
you don't
about
want to hit him out of bounds. So guess what he's going to do? He's going to go out of bounds and stand.
Now the worst thing in the NFL
that should be an offensive.
The worst thing in the NFL on the football field is the fake quarterback slide, like what Kenny Pickett did in college. You fake the slide, pull up, run for a touchdown. That should be a whistle, like have 2 whistles. Allow you to blow 2 whistles. Stop the play immediately, 15 yards from where the play started, and if you do 2 of those, you're ejected, and you miss the next game. That shit needs to be a 2-way street.
This is Cliff Victoria nails it. It's the hypocrisy of the NFL. We don't like violence, but then they made literal NFL highlight films of like nastiest hits of all fucking time and then put it on NFL Network. Fuck you, you fucking hypocrite bitch. Like, You're talking to me about how gambling, you got all these guys getting lifetime bans. Jamison Williams got a year-long ban for fucking gambling on football. I don't even think it was on his own team.
It wasn't Jamo Williams. It was Calvin Ridley. Jamo Williams got banned for using store brand Viagra or something.
No, he also got banned like 4 games for gambling. But yeah, Calvin Ridley.
I believe it.
Gambling or some shit, and then they're gonna.
I gotta find some tweets on
DraftKings.com. DraftKings.com, the official sponsor. DraftKings.com. Fuck you, you fucking assholes. And that's what I'm saying with Richie Incognito. That didn't matter. People and moms were getting on Twitter immediately at that time. Oh my God, did you see that video of the coach saying if you hurt him, you get 10 grand? Oh my God, did you see that video of the guy saying he was being bullied by his teammates? let's, it was the court of public opinion time. It was a very much like everything was a gate. We were comparing it to Watergate, for Christ's sake. Everything was Watergate. And then whatever happened in the court of public opinion, that's just what they were going to do. So who fucking cares? Fuck Jonathan Martin, honestly. He's an absolute piece of shit human being. How it took him this long to admit it and hold on to that guilt for that long, you're an asshole, dude. Fuck you. Good for coming out and saying it. You should get sued. You should absolutely. Richie Incognito, 100. I can't think of anything that's this slanderous, career damages. Like Carl said, he fucking affected his Pro Bowl voting probably. Guys in the media that would want to vote for Richie Incognito as all pro didn't. That killed his contract status because you get bonuses for being an all pro. Fuck that guy, dude.
And then you get coached to not be a bad guy. I mean, I think in that article, it was a good quote. I can't remember exactly what it was, essentially. It is a requirement to be a good football player to have one or two screws loose. Now you're teaching these kids not to do that. Now you have a worse product on the football field. Quarterbacks are getting hurt, and we're going to try and, put more rules on. We're going to have them wear guardian caps. No, man, I think it's definitely honestly, a butterfly effect.
There is a little bit of that correlation causation with offensive linemen. Offensive linemen growing up were the kids who were like, I'm the biggest kid and I like hitting people. I'm going to get good at fucking legally getting allowed
and
to hit people.
Like legitimately adored hitting people. Now that's frowned upon.
I knew a guy that joined high school wrestling just so he could break people's bones.
And then this is what I'm saying.
Bigger
it's
than
like,
everybody.
You may as well put them in there. And now you're taking all these nice guys who are like retired basketball players and making them fucking. This is why, like, just get the biggest rugby players and make them offensive linemen, dude. Fuck that.
I mean, for Christ's sake, Myles Garrett is a top candidate, for a trade. Everybody's saying, hey, this guy's all pro defensive end. We all saw him attack somebody with a helmet on the field. You know what I mean? Like, hey, whatever, right? He produces. He produces nicely. The problem is the linemen, they don't have the numbers. Like, you can sit there and be an asshole like Aaron Rodgers, but damn it, you're so good that it doesn't matter. And the numbers are there. Same thing with wide receiver, dude. You can be as crazy as Antonio Brown. If you're putting up the numbers, it's going to get swept under the rug. For linemen, for offensive linemen, they don't really have many numbers to put up. So, like, that's where I think it really
on top of them
Richie Incognito the most.
On top of the linemen relying on their other linemen. Again, 5 equals 1. So, yeah, you're totally spot on here. I just think this is a massive story. And unfortunately, because the national media got it wrong to begin with, no one's going to talk about it. And it fucking sucks because there's a legitimate butterfly effect that I think is resulting in a lesser product of my favorite sport.
It's a bigger story than the original actual story.
Fact.
And 100%. It's going to be swept under the rug in one day rather than be talked about for 2 months.
And this has Barstool written all over it. So if Big Cat Williams is talking to Richie Incognito, might have to call off work, listen to that in its entirety, because that's going to be a great listen.
I mean, Richie Incognito has already been on a few podcasts with like Julian Edelman and all that stuff. Richie Incognito needs to be invited on every fucking podcast and be allowed to just tell the truth. Because fuck that guy.
ESPN, ran by Evil Disney. If they want to get their credibility back, dedicate the A block with Stephen A. Smith to a one-on-one interview with Richie Incognito. I'm buying YouTube TV. I'm watching live ESPN again just because of that. Step one, get it right.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
somebody, $1 million idea here. Somebody give Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin a sit down conversation with a host,
and someone will try and say, "Oh, that's not going to go well." They're literally buds. Like, I think that they can settle those differences aside. It's just keep the Jonathan Martin parents away from that story.
I think it would go very well.
At the end of the day, when it comes to dirty players, I think, these guys around the league know who's a dirty player and who's not a dirty player. And
Harrison Smith.
And these guys switch teams. So at the end of the day, you might be teammates with some of these guys. Dude, it goes way back. I remember, what was it? Deion Sanders, I think. Some guy went low on him and got up and just smacked the dude in the face, started mouthing off to him, "What the hell are you doing?" You know what I mean? Because that's cheap. What do you want to take out my knee like that? And so for no reason too. And I get that. And then who was that ginger corner on the Titans that pissed off
Cortland Finnegan.
Finnegan. Dude, that guy pissed off Andre Johnson so bad. But I mean, some of these guys would do research.
Oh my God.
They'd
Can
learn
you
your
imagine?
mother's name, they'd learn your sister's name. They would sit there and talk so much shit to you that, like, dude,
The
you want to talk
NFL,
about bullying? You
They
want to
would
talk
cut
about
to
bullying?
black. I know where you're going with this, Carl. They would cut to black. We will be right back from this commercial break if Cortland Finnegan, Andre Johnson did what they did now. It was awesome. It's one of my favorite highlights, though.
But if the great Al Harris can rescue Tyreek Stevenson and get him into the Cortland Finnegan school of thought and stratosphere, holy fuck, that would be amazing.
Yep. I got not much more on this Richie Incognito thing. I just think it
No.
sucked.
Yeah.
It's going to inspire me to do some homework. I want to see what his numbers look like and where he'd rank as far as advanced metrics. So, if you guys are interested in that.
He'd be an Alan Faneca. He'd be right there with Alan Faneca at that time.
Is Alan Faneca not a first ballot?
Yeah, I think
Hall
he
of
would be
Famer?
first ballot.
You know, guys, I always say this, like, if you want to focus on good characters, good personalities, good role models, I mean, you're gonna
Do not watch NFL ski. I'm just kidding.
You're gonna have a league full of Tim Tebows. At the end of the day, the product's gonna suffer. I mean, sure, go ahead. You go out there, get high character guys, and like, dude, that's just not what I'm watching. It's a gladiator.
Where do you draw the
sport.
line?
I
Death?
don't have, dude. Carl, you know where my
Jalen
line is.
Carter?
It's legal trouble.
He agreed to race. It was his fault.
Dude, you know what, Carl? You want to go in on the Jalen Carter thing? I'm down, dude. Like I told you, it's
No.
all right, fine, David. It's your show. But
This is where I would play the outro for BCP and just cut the show.
but
I'm
dude,
just
like,
gonna play the outro. See,
I don't have much of a line. My focus is on field production and stay out of trouble legally. I mean,
I have
Damn it, that reminded me. I haven't made the clip from our live stream from a couple Saturdays ago where I asked you about Kyron Lacey, and with zero hesitation, you said, if he produces.
Guys, I have breaking news for you. There's fucking CEOs of $1 million companies who run them really, really well, who have definitely killed a hooker or two.
Flex
No one fucking
Diggs.
cares.
Flex Diggs. I don't agree with that comment, but maybe I'm biased.
no, Dave, for sure. Do you have owners out there that are terrible people? Do Dan Snyder?
How
was
many
one of-
people do you think Jerry Jones has killed? And it's not zero. I can
I mean,
guarantee that.
Listen.
No one cares.
Deshaun
Jerry
Watson.
Jones.
Deshaun Watson is a sexual predator, right? Justin Tucker is a sexual predator. What about Robert Kraft? Forgot about that one. Let's keep that one in there.
Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to say. If the Redskins can have a sexual predator and the NFL can assist them in having a good season with a terrible quarterback, I don't care about you, Jane Daniels.
Carl, this is why me and Paul share this opinion of, like, I could not give two shits about what Jalen Carter did. I wanted him on my team. I did not give a fuck. It's a fucking, like we said, it's a sport of psychopaths. You have to be
my
deranged
argument
a
for
little bit.
that, in a vacuum, he was probably the draft pick. But when you're a team as bad as the Bears were,
I get
without
the
the
situation. I'm just
offensive
saying.
line help, it was fine. Plus, Jalen Carter on any other of the 31 football teams would not be current Jalen Carter because he wasn't surrounded with the teammates that he won the national championship with in Georgia. It's just a fact.
Correct.
It was the perfect situation. The Eagles did it again. If we want to do conspiracy, let's bully Howie Roseman. Let's do that. Let's derail Howie Roseman's career. Then it'll all come full circle and Richie Incognito
Next
can be
week,
pardoned.
Let's have a power ranking of which NFL owners we think have killed the most people.
Well, if you're talking about hookers, Robert Kraft could be at the top of the list.
I saw a
If
guy.
you want to get really
Mike-
nuts.
I saw a guy put a Mike Vick jersey on his dog.
Was he Eagles fan? It was an Eagles fan, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. He played for the Birds. I fucking hate Philadelphia fans so much.
Hey, you guys want to know? We'll end on this. The Bears and the Eagles were picking back-to-back 2 years ago. 9 and 10.
There's something to that, though. That was definitely not the pick they earned because they lost to the Buccaneers, right? Or was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago. They had a down year the year before.
No, they did something. They did something. And they traded up just a little bit. Or maybe it was Jordan Davis. They traded up for Jordan Davis, but they had some picks that they acquired somehow, some way. By the way, I saw some dickhead trying to say that the singular Carson Wentz trade, just the trade away for Carson Wentz, resulted in all those players. That's a fucking no. That's wrong. It was a combination. There was a lot more to it, but it wasn't just a one draft trade.
All right. Anyway, this show went off the rails. Got a little too stupid.
What's the viewership looking like? I bet we're at peak viewership right now.
No, we have declined.
Definitely fall. I don't
all,
even see
folks.
animation in here anymore.
All right, we'll see everybody next week. Hopefully with some actual NFL fucking news.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.